All right, so let's start with today's session. Greetings, everyone. I hope that all of you are doing well and are eagerly looking forward to today's session. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today for this mentor session organized by Ramanujan Consulting Club. For those who don't know, Ramanujan Consulting Club is a student-run organization based out of Ramanujan College University of Delhi. We provide pro bono consulting services to startups and NGOs. Our past experiences include working with Shark Tank featured startups and international NGOs. Today's session, Case Crunch, is led by Mr. Anubhav Mishra, currently a senior associate at Bain. He has a wide set of experience or something from having worked in various top consulting firms. During today's session, Anubhav will cover a comprehensive range of topics, including the intricacies of case interviews, various approaches to effectively tackle case interview challenges, method for optimal interview preparation, and solving cases live with the attendees. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Anubhav to take the virtual stage and impart his knowledge and insights on the same. We hope that all of you enjoy the session.
Thanks, Anshika. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Thanks for joining this session on a weekend. I'm sure you had some plans, but you're prioritizing some learning on the weekend, so that's always good. So, I'll give a quick background about myself. Born and brought up in Ahmedabad, completed my engineering in 2016. Then I joined PwC as a consultant in their technology consulting practice. uh, did a lot of implementation and consulting projects focused on tech for 3 years, then decided that I liked, the business aspect of consulting more than technical aspects. So went on to pursue my MBA. After MBA, I joined Bain and Company, and here I've been doing a lot of projects in private equity, automobile, and manufacturing space. So then I think I am a career consultant, and my journey with case interviews also started, I think, right after my undergraduate when I was looking to interview with more strategy consulting firms. So that's when, I got my first experience of doing cases, practicing cases in groups. And it's been a, learning experience from there. And I'm very fortunate to get a chance to help some of you folks on your own case interview journey. So I think we are good to start, and we'll keep this session interactive. So please raise a hand if you have a question. I'll also pause in between to hear thoughts from you guys. I'm sure some of you might be a little familiar with case interviews. So I hope the information that I give will refresh some of those concepts. Anshika, if you can go to the first slide. All right, the very basics, right? What is a case interview? So, as you would know, consulting has projects that essentially are business problems that clients need their help on, right? And that is what they also try to test when they are interviewing people for joining any consulting company. So, it's essentially a simplified, condensed version of a real life case that, the manager or a partner at the consulting company would have done. And although this type of interview was very popular for management consulting, I have heard that a lot of firms, like some of these startups and even Amazon, are doing case interviews where they give you a specific set of problems and they try to see how you approach it, how you problem solve, how you communicate. So this is becoming a very popular style of interview, and essentially, very simply, it's a problem statement that you're given. You're supposed to, act like an advisor or a consultant and try to break it down into smaller pieces, try to identify some kind of solution, and essentially give a recommendation in the end. There are a lot of variations that can happen, but for this session, I think having this sort of base knowledge, I think will work well. So Let's go to the next slide. Right. So I think some aspects around mindset and techniques that are very essential for case interview. And that's where I feel uh, a lot of freshers or people who are just starting out, they feel that, a case interview is kind of like an exam question, that there's only one right answer, and unless you get that right answer, you are not successful. But that's not the case. How you should orient your mind is that a case interview is a discussion. It simulates the conversations that you will have with clients in real life when you join the consulting firm. So that is how you are supposed to think of it. That, okay, a company or a CEO from any company has come to me with this problem. How will I communicate with him? How will I develop some kind of structure? How will I maybe form some hypothesis or solutions? And we can begin work in the next few weeks. That's how it happens in real life. But that is sort of the mindset that you want to have. There is no one right question or one right answer. It's more about your approach to solving that problem and the communication that you display. And the second very important mindset is coachability. A lot of time in interviews, because you don't have a lot of time, the case interview will actually guide you to a certain way. So it's very important to understand that, okay, there might be 10 things that can be done, but the interviewer wants to focus on two things, and essentially let's keep our focus on just those things and try to dive deeper into that. So becoming coachable, I think it translates really well, because when you're working with a client, the client will have some priorities, and since they've hired you, you have to, like, keep your focus on those priorities. There might be 10 or whatever 15 other things happening in the company, but what is the priority for the client should be your priority. So that's the larger context on coachability. The rest of the aspects are, I think, applicable to any sort of interviews. So structured problem solving, essentially whatever communication that you are doing has to be in a structured way. And what do I mean by structured? That means, like, you are, a very popular term here is MECE. You are mutually exclusive and cumulatively exhaustive. So once you start on your case interview prep, I think try every day to have structured thought. And a lot of times when I was practicing, and I like to order a lot from Swiggy or Zomato. So, the problem that I would have is, okay, I want to order from somewhere. So what are the options that I have? And this would be maybe a structure I would form in my mind. So, okay, I can order from an app, uh, I can ask my mom to cook, or I can cook by myself. So this is the three branch structure that I have. And say if I want to order out, then what are the two options that I have? I have Zomato and I have Swiggy, right? And if I want to ask my mom to cook, then okay, what do I want to have? So that sort of structured thinking, once you start inculcating in your daily life, you'll find that it becomes easier in case interviews as well. Other hard skills, business acumen, essentially, I think having a base level knowledge on basic business concepts, like, what is a balance sheet, what are the components of a P&L statement, uh, what is revenue, cost, just basic stuff, that's good enough. Analytical mindset, essentially you have to be comfortable with numbers, doing some calculations mentally. Honestly, I'm not the best at it, I always make mistakes, but that is something, if you find that you're weak at, you should focus on. The last one everyone asks is industry knowledge. It definitely aids your confidence, but I feel this can be developed once you go through a lot of cases, and you will understand what uh, are the revenue drivers in any industry, what are the cost drivers, and maybe you will do internships in a particular industry, and the interviewer might just ask you a case from that. So whenever you get any kind of industry exposure, try to learn it very deeply so that you can leverage it in a real life interview. Soft skills, communication, I think very simply being very clear and concise in your communication, that helps. Prioritization 80/20. This is a skill that even uh, partners still tell us to practice because this is like it takes a lifetime to get good at it. But essentially it means prioritizing on what is important, right? Say, a company has two products and both have some kind of problem, but one product drives like 80% of the revenue, another drives only 20%. So when you are thinking of solutions, you want to prioritize that one product first, right? And the second product you can think on solutions, but essentially having that intuitive sense that okay, this thing is more important to the client or to the case concept, and it makes sense to focus on it first, because whatever is driving more impact, addressing the problem in that area will obviously eventually also lead to more value generation. So that's on 80/20. Critical thinking, very simply, just having logical thinking. Okay, if we uh, say increase prices, that might have effect on the number of consume customers that we cater to. So just having logical thinking flow, and that will help you in your structure as well. Time management, I think this is mostly, usually led by the interviewer. They will not allow you to take your time. So, but having your own sense of time management, uh, and once you get your own structure, prioritization in place, I think that comes naturally, right? And I think the last is curiosity, enthusiasm. Always be very enthusiastic, have a smile on your face when you are interviewing. Everyone wants to work with people who are easy to work with and enthusiastic. So that helps. I think I'll pause here for any questions or any other mindset or techniques that you guys have come across that you feel are important for case interviews. I'm happy to hear that. Please feel free to unmute and ask a question, or if you have anything on your mind. Sure, Shweksha, please go ahead.
Is it really important to be like good with numbers for consulting, or you can like with experience go with it and start your journey?
So, when you say good with numbers, I think being able to do a little bit of like say mental maths, it doesn't have to be like calculus or differential equations. Like I think I'm from an engineering background, so that is my benchmark. But essentially having like an analytical mindset, like okay, you have two variables, and you know if one increases, another decreases. And I think like basic 10th grade maths, I think that's good enough. But analytical mindset is more than just good numbers. It's like to break down things into quantifiable and unquantifiable things, and essentially what can be measured, what can be quantified. So some of these aspects also play into having that analytical mindset.
That's very great to hear. And one more question: are there any specific courses that we can go for if you want to go in consulting? And is it related to core finance, or it's like more of consulting and not more of finance?
So consulting also comes in a lot of flavors, but I think everyone's focus here is management consulting. So it's not very core finance. I would like to say it's strategy, but again, then it's a very vague term. But essentially, there's some sort of problems that clients can have, and we'll go through some of the frameworks that will give you a flavor on what kind of problems they have. But essentially, say a product line is not doing well. So is there a problem with their marketing? So maybe as I work in Bain, so Bain can be hired to understand, okay, you know, how is their marketing strategy different from some of the peers in the market? Where are the lags? Okay, we have found that these two, three things they are doing bad. So what can be the solution? So that way it's very like skill agnostic or knowledge agnostic. You can be asked to do finance, you can be asked to do marketing, you can be asked to do IT, and that is where these skills come into picture, right? You have a structured problem solving, you have prioritization, and you are able to uh, address problem in any sort of situation. And of course you have help from your superiors who have more industry knowledge. You have a lot of internal tools, papers, and presentations already, so that helps to build a knowledge base as well. So I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, it was really great. Thank you so much.
All right. If there are no other questions, maybe we can go to the next slide. Okay, one of the trickiest case that you have worked on. I think trickiest, I think one of the case that I was on lately, beginning of this year. So that was doing IT strategy for a real estate player. So while I did have IT experience, but I didn't have any, clue on how the estate industry works. So that was a bit tricky. Like I had to understand, what essentially happens in a real estate company. So essentially after a lot of discussions, and you go through internal materials, but you develop an understanding of, how that business works. And then try to understand how will some of the IT solutions really help them. So I think the tricky part was just not having industry exposure. So I hope that was interesting enough for you. Okay, so this slide I have listed down like typically 5 stages or flows of a case interview. So before the case interview, please have a pen and paper with you, right? That's very important. And usually the interviewer will have a little bit of chit chat. They'll ask you, oh, how are you doing? Tell me about yourself. I think that will happen for 5-10 minutes. And then they'll say, okay, let's do a case. So the interviewer will give you a problem. And the very first thing that you want to do is say, thanks for giving me this problem statement. And you have to reiterate what he has said so that you both can come to the same page of understanding, right? So if I said that XYZ company is facing a problem with, uh, D product, so I have to say it back, okay, so what I am hearing from you is that XYZ company is having a problem with D product and they want our help to, identify what might be causing this. Is that correct? So the interviewer will say yes. So that's the problem iteration stage. Next, what you want to do is a clarification stage. Essentially, I'll use the same example. Say you want to understand more about the context of the problem. So if there is a company XYZ, you can ask a clarifying question. Okay, what does XYZ actually do? Uh, since when has this product been facing this problem? Uh, are XYZ's competitors also facing this problem? Is there a problem in this industry? So you want to gain more context around that problem, because essentially the structure and solutions that you will develop later, that will be based on having that additional context. Just the problem statement typically will not have a lot of elements that will help you. So asking the relevant clarification questions, noting down that information, and then moving to the next stage. And typically you can have a pause between stage 2 and 3. So you can say to the interviewer, all right, I think I have enough information. Can I take a minute or two to really structure my thoughts? And in this stage, you will structure your thoughts. Say, okay, again, let's work from the same example, okay, product D is having a problem. Is it a problem maybe in their revenue numbers, or is there a problem on their cost side, or is it a problem on their marketing side? Is it a problem on their market share? So that is a structure that I just came up with. And once I have that structure in place, I go back to the interviewer and say, all right, I think I will look at these 4 things. Let me know if this looks okay. And we can start off by looking at the first area or bucket, which is revenue for product D. Is that is that fine? And the interviewer will say, yeah, I think that's doable. Let's look at revenue. And then you would go further down that bucket. Say if it's revenues, you want to understand what are the revenue streams. There are more aspects that the interviewer will also guide you, and it depends on the case context, right? And eventually you will arrive at a point where you are very confident that this is the root cause of the problem, and you align with your interviewer and you say, I think from our analysis, I really find that it is D's product D's online marketing SEO that has been lagging, and that is essentially not allowing people to discover this product, and that's essentially affecting our market share. So we have identified the problem as the search engine optimization of product D being the problem. And now we can list down some solutions. So you can again ask for some time that I want to think on some solutions. And even at this stage, it helps to be structured. So there are a lot of structures you can say. In the short term, I have 1, 2, 3 solutions. In the long term, we can do X, Y, Z solutions. How does that sound? And the interview will say, okay, I do like this solution. The third one that you mentioned is not feasible. Uh, the long-term solution, I think it's very good, and that I think will yield a lot of value. So that's all good. You have done the solutions, and the last stage can be, or although in my personal experience, a lot of time this stage is skipped because of time constraints, but essentially you might be asked to do a synthesis or recommendation, final recommendation. So this simulates kind of an update to the client, right? So how will it happen in real life, right? Whatever the client's executive team has given us a problem, Bain's consulting team has been working for a month, and now there's an update. So there's a final synthesis. So what you want to do here is you want to present the solution and its value first. You don't want to go over what was the problem, what was the analysis, whatever 100 things that you did to arrive at the solution. Typically, that is the client is not interested in that, and the interviewer will also look for that kind of communication. So you say, we identified that product D's search engine optimization was a problem, and for that we are now looking into using Google Analytics, and that should improve our SEO optimization by 10%. So that is the final synthesis, as short as that, right? You don't want to do that, okay, we looked at, the revenue drivers for D, then we did one day looking at this, second day we did that, we had so many calls. You don't want to show the effort, or you might have done a lot of effort, but it's eventually the final recommendation or solution and its value that counts. So that's what you want to do in the final synthesis or recommendation stage. I'm sure this was quite a lot, and maybe I'm speaking a little too fast, but happy to pause here and address any questions or thoughts.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
Anubhav, I'm
Rahul.
audible. So you spoke
Yes,
about final recommendation and synthesis. Is it same as that the final conclusion what we make for the case?
yes, that conclusion or recommendation
So
synthesis. It's all the
by
same.
giving multiple rounds, also solving the cases, I am mostly confused what, because I have lot more points to say, and like to conclude it in a very precise way. Is there any technique to like give a final conclusion that is also hits out the brownie point for our interview itself? Because I'm a lot more times confused about what would be a prioritizing final solution out of the case.
Right. So if the case has ended at, you have a laundry list of solutions. So
Right.
you can say that, okay, uh, and even if you feel that at that stage you could have asked, or say the interviewer is not really indicating on which is the best solution. So you can put your recommendation saying that, okay, we identified the problem and we are now looking at potentially 5 solutions. The next stage would be to really understand which of these solution will drive the most impact on the problem, and that will be implemented. So that's the like synthesis that you can work with.
Got it. Got it. Give him the maximum possible options and try to prioritize on the basis of same.
Yeah, you can say that that is what you would have done next, or that is what must be done next.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Guys, please feel free to have any questions or any doubts. I'm very happy, or I would want to keep this very interactive. Otherwise, we can now look at frameworks. I think I'll wait for 20 or 30 seconds. So I hope the stages were clear. There can be variations. I have seen that uh, in one of my rounds with Bain, essentially I was not even given a case context or like a case statement. Essentially, I was told that you know the CEO has formed an opinion and they want to enter a market. What would be 2 or 3 things that you will advise to him? So there can be more challenging contexts that can be given to you, but essentially, if you start practicing as per these stages, you will get comfortable with variety or jumping from one stage to another. That will happen eventually, but when you start, try to inculcate all of these stages, right? And I think then we can look at frameworks. I think for every case interview enthusiast, that's the really the meat of the prep that you have to do. But before we go into frameworks, understand that they are just tools to help you structure. Once you learn these frameworks, you will have the tools, and uh, in your actual interview, you will not be able to use a framework exactly as per that, because the problem will be, it will not be out of casebook. So you want to avoid looking very mechanical, and in fact you should not even say that I will use this framework to solve the problem, because uh, like I told, right, a case interview is simulation of a client conversation. So if I go in the front of a CEO and I say, okay, I will use a framework of profitability to solve your problem, right, that would look very unprofessional and childish. But then how do you manage? Say if it's a profitability problem, and we know the framework essentially means looking at revenue and the cost side. So what you do in your interview is you don't say that, okay, I will use the profitability framework. What you do is keep it more conversational. Okay, an example of this would be, all right, so I understand profits have been declining, and I think profits have both uh, the revenue component and the cost component. Is the revenue component declining, or is the cost component increasing? So that's how you use the framework, but it doesn't sound very mechanical. And there are a lot of types of frameworks, but your goal should be that once you go over the standard types, for any case problem, you are able to arrive at your own personal framework. So for my practice, like for a market entry framework, when I was practicing, looking at two or three case books, they had their own frameworks. I made my own framework. So for market entry, I would look at what are the company's objective for market entry, what is the attractiveness of the market, and what is the barriers to entry. So that was my framework. There might be another framework in other books. So you decide on what works best for you. And some of types of frameworks are given here. Profitability framework, the most uh, common. It has revenue and cost drivers. Market entry, like I said, it has components around why does a company want to enter the market? What is the attractiveness? Essentially, what is the target market size? What is the profitability that could be achieved? What are the barriers to entry? What will be the competitive dynamics? So those are some aspects in market entry framework. Market sizing framework is essentially understanding what are the uh, base of customers that you can have in a market, how much of those can you serve, and what is the price point that you can cater to them. So that will give you a market size. Growth strategy, essentially, that may mean growing number of users, or maybe it's growing number of markets that you operate in. So a growth strategy could become market entry strategy, right? And you will have like frameworks across case books. I've not encountered growth strategy that much, but it's an upcoming like division in companies. A lot of growth roles are opening up, so it's a good framework to practice. Mergers and acquisitions, very common again. Essentially, it has two broad aspects. You want to understand the attractiveness of the market, and you want to understand the attractiveness of the asset. So if I am a CEO, I'm going for an M&A. What can be like a very common or example of merger that happened right now? Maybe say Sony and Z, right? So if I'm the CEO of Z, I'm saying that okay, so obviously Sony is in a market like ourselves, and we see this market growing quite fast, and we want to increase, our presence here. And specifically at the asset, which is Sony, we look at, okay, the financials of Sony make sense, their culture is good, their content channels is seeing high traction, high adoption. So even the company is good. So the market is good, the company is good, let's go ahead. The last one is value chain analysis, and essentially it's the uh, process by which maybe a product is delivered. A simple value chain is raw material sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, and then marketing. So value chain can differ a lot by the kind of industry that you're looking at, but this is like a approach that you can have to solve any problem. So if a manufacturing company has a problem and you don't know where it is happening, you can list down its value chain and then look at it one by one. Cool. And can we go to the next slide? We'll have a look at a profitability framework. While this is quite extensive, and please don't think that you have to memorize it, but just get a soft hang of it, in the sense that, okay, profit has two drivers, revenue and cost. Revenue essentially would mean number of customers multiplied by the average ticket or selling price, and product mix if a company has multiple products. Can we go to the next slide? And on the cost side, this framework is also fine. You have primary or support activities. Primary activities, and essentially this typically is the cost of goods sold, right? So you can see a value chain here. So from procurement, manufacturing, distribution, and storage, and any post services that will form one element of cost. And then there are overheads, right? Any company has its marketing function, it has admin, it has HR, finance. So all of those costs are also typically there for any company. So just having a sense of, what are the types of uh, in profitability, two basic branches. Within revenue, you typically break it as a number of customers into price. In cost, you typically break it into, say, the COGS and overheads. So that's the profitability framework. And you will get hang of this once you do a lot of profitability cases. So it will start making sense. At this stage, please don't think that you have to memorize this or have each and every cost uh, head really memorized. That's for CAs, I think. But all right, next slide. Uh, Market entry. So this framework says that you would look at market attractiveness, you would look at customer competition, barriers to entry. That's a very good like uh, approach. I think that's very comprehensive. And a similar approach can be looking at the four C and P's: customer, company, competition, product. And when you are entering a market, you have two types of entry modes. It can be organic or inorganic. I think it's pretty evident. And any questions on this? Any questions on frameworks in general?
Uh,
Yeah, Keshav, you have a question?
yes, Anubhav. I want to ask, like, can you please elaborate the M&A framework a little bit?
Okay, while it's not covered here, but how I used to do M&A was just two broad areas. So it is attractiveness of market, and you can see market attractiveness has some of those components: addressable market, growth rate, and profits, right? So that will give you a good sense of an attractive market. And then this next thing is the target attractiveness, target or asset attractiveness. And there uh, you want to basically assess a company, right? So what are the components that you can look at? You can look at the finances of the company, you can look at operations of the company. You would also look at culture. So that is a soft aspect, right? A lot of M&A fail because cultures mismatch. So culture is one aspect. Uh, a lot of time M&A is happening uh, in startups. So you would also want to look at what is the investor uh, table at the startup if you are looking to maybe merge or take a stake. So just think of, what are some MECE buckets. So all of these buckets are completely exclusive to each other, but when they come together, that will give you a very good idea of a company's attractiveness. And one level down, like in financials, what will you look at? You will look at their profits, you will look at their balance sheet, right? If you're looking at their operations, you can look at their value chain. Uh, how many factories do they have? What kind of output numbers they're looking at. All of this will depend on the case context, what is the company. But like I said, having these 4 or 5 aspects will remain common, and then you will have to discuss and take it from there. We also had a question from Aditya. We will cover the aspect on resources at the very last, but essentially it's practice with your friends. So casebooks are available publicly. You can ask your friends. a lot of international case books are also available, but to increase your skill set, it's essentially practice. All right, Zubia, go ahead.
Yeah, so could you please elaborate a little more through an example regarding organic and inorganic under the market entry framework?
Right. So organic, what does it mean? Like you want to set up a factory in a new market, right? So organic is to go there, buy land, and set up a factory. That's the greenfield approach. What is an inorganic approach? There's already a factory present in that market. You go and acquire it, or you form a JV with them, and now you have entered the market, right?
All right, thank you.
Cool. Then I
Hello.
think, sure. Who was
There are
that?
only
Sorry.
3 to 4
Yeah,
standard
Rahul.
framework, right? Which we need to practice more.
I think if you do these 6, you are basically covered. But what will end up happening in reality is you might get even an unconventional case. So an example of that is, you are made the chief minister of, say, Delhi for a week. What will be the top 3 things that you will do, right? So just to test your comfortability with structured approach. So here also you have to give some kind of structure and give the answer in a structured way, right? So, and
Got it.
if I had to do it like, okay, I will look at uh, education, health, uh, what can be some other aspects, maybe finances. So I will have a structure in phase, and then that's how I will proceed with the interview. So please don't get thrown off that, or this problem doesn't really reside into market entry, or it's not profitability. Once you get in the habit of structured thinking, you'll be able to form a structure for any business or any context that you have. All right, I'll take the last question from Ishanvi, and then we'll try to do a short case.
Okay, so can you provide tips for performing quick calculations under pressure?
Oh, quick calculation. I think no one really puts pressure on you for calculation. It's just having a sense of, what seems logical, right? So if a company has revenue of 1000 crore and whatever market they want to enter, and your calculation is giving uh, say a addressable market of 1 crore, that doesn't seem right? So you might have done some calculation error. So just having that kind of sense on what that number will look like, that will help you. But no interviewer will put pressure on you. Okay, tell me fast, tell me, solve the correct answer and tell me.
Okay.
Cool. Let's move to the case then. All right. So how I want to do it, and this might end up taking a little more time, but I'll try to be a little speedy. But essentially, I'll walk all of you guys through the stages, and I'll handhold you and give you some kind of cues, and anyone is free to speak up and take it forward, right? So let's just dive into it, right? So basically, your client is an oil distributor. They have 4 petrol pumps. One of them is facing a problem with its profitability. What can you do? That is the statement given to you. How will you proceed? Anyone, please feel free to speak up. Remember the stages of case interviews that we had covered. Yeah, Rahul, go ahead.
Hello. By oil
Yeah,
distribution, you mean they are only selling petrol and diesel, not the gas, right?
uh, that's fine. But remember, the very first thing that we want to do is reiteration. So how will you do that?
So thank you, sir, for giving me this case. So I will reiterate the case for you. So you have given me the problem statement like my client is an oil distributor who is facing the challenge of profitability, one out of four petroleums. So I need to diagnose the problem and recommend you the appropriate solution. So I will move forward with the following steps. So I will tell him the what steps I need to take and I also ask clarifying questions.
Yeah, so that that's the reiteration, and you say that are we on the same page? I think, or is my understanding correct? And I say, yeah, that's correct. Let's proceed.
Got it.
So what is the next stage? And anyone else can also please come in here.
So I will ask what is the location of the place? Is it in the market or some outskirts of the city?
That's a good question. What other kinds of questions will you ask? All right, Parth, then why don't you take a
Okay,
shot?
so is the problem being faced by other petrol pumps in the same region or only this petrol pump?
Only this petrol pump. What else will you ask? Sure, Zubia, go ahead.
So I just wanted to ask if the problem being faced of the reducing profit is because of a specific product like petrol that they are distributing, or is it because of any other products that they're uh, selling as well?
This question is a little tricky. Essentially, it goes a little deeper, but uh, I think it's fine in one way also. So, yeah, it's only with they essentially sell petrol. So that's where the problem is, right? Sure, Keshav.
I just want to ask, like, what is the magnitude of decline and from when it is declining?
So that is not really relevant here. I think just the fact that it's declining is like that's there's no need to
And
provide more context.
okay. And moreover, like, just to mention, like, you that it is a profitability issue. So, is it a revenue side issue or a cost side issue?
That question typically should happen in the next stage, but uh, if you want to clarify it right away, I think that also works. So, and the information that I can give you, it's a revenue side issue, and I think I'll also correct myself. They sell petrol as well as have a convenience store on the petrol pump where they sell some kind of snacks or something.
Okay.
So let's then move to the next stage. So I think we have some uh, like context on the problem. So what will be like the kind of structure that you will start off with? And I think looking at some comments, that's a very typical like tendency that you want to really, you know, understand the solution just right at the start. Okay, maybe operating cost can be, maybe it could be, but we'll figure out all of that later. We don't want to jump to conclusions at the very beginning.
Hello.
Yeah, if
So
anyone can.
location
Okay,
isn't clear till now. So also the time factor, at what time the petrol pump is operational, and per minute how many, firstly how many booths are there which are helping to fuel. So
again, booths are not really important, and for location, you can think of a metro.
an operational time when it is operational,
24 hours, 24
20.
hours. Does anyone have a structure that they can tell me? And you don't have to be like completely correct. We can have a conversation. So a lot of times maybe your structure is half correct, half wrong. So unless you tell it to the interviewer, they'll not be able to direct you in the right way. So whatever is coming to your mind, I am happy to hear that. So Devajyoti, go ahead.
Sir, is the oil distributor is selling to the consumers like normal citizen or the industrial like ONGC, GAIL?
Uh, that's not relevant. Sorry. Why don't you try to like use the context that has been given? It's a metro, it's one petrol pump, you are the petrol pump owner, profits are going down. How will you structure that problem?
So Anubhav, you mentioned that it also has a convenience store, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
the profit factor could be either of the petrol side or from the convenience store. And also, I'd like to
correct.
know that what type of customers do visit the convenience store, or do they go for both the petrol and visiting the convenience store, or do they just go for getting the petrol?
Right. So I think that's a good structure. Revenue has two aspects from here, the revenue from petrol pump and revenue from convenience store. And since you asked for share, so the information that I will give you is typically 30% of people who come to fill petrol go to the convenience store. Anyone wants to proceed from there? So we know that profits are declining, costs are not a problem. So that means revenue is declining, right? That means profit declines. And revenue has two sources, revenue from petrol pump, revenue from convenience store. So either one of them could be declining or both could be declining. Anyone wants to take a shot at how they would look at the revenue from the petrol pump only? From the activity of petrol filling, let's just keep it that way. Whoever raised their hand, please feel free to talk. Yeah, Ritika.
Hi, so I think the revenue from the petrol pump can be divided into the number of customers that are coming to get the petrol. Secondly, it also depends upon the price of the petrol pump, price of the petrol, that is. And the third can also depend upon the total amount spent by the customer on the petrol.
Right. So the revenue from the petrol alone will be a simple multiplication of number of customers that come on an average multiplied by the average amount of petrol that they fill multiplied by the price per liter. So you have these three things. Now, how will you take it forward from there?
I'd also like to ask if there's any data on the number of customers who visit or the prices of the petrol or the products at the convenience store.
Well, that is important, but say you are at the stage where you are just looking at these three things. So you would want to understand just data points for this. So I'll I'll give you right now we know 100 customers come daily. On average, they fill 1 liter of petrol and the price is also 100 per liter.
Is that the same for any other competitors in that location or the area?
Again, I think this was clarified that we are not looking at the competition, it's just us. So if we keep the focus on just these three elements, so how will you take it forward from there? I can give a clue. Essentially, you would want to ask which one of these has been declining, right? So has the number of people visiting the petrol pump declining, or is the amount of petrol that they are filling in each session declining, or the price is declining? And the data point that I'll give you, it's the number of people who are visiting the petrol pump that are declining. Right now it is at 100. It was maybe 120, 150 before. Right now it's 100. And this decline is actually contributing to the overall decline in revenue.
Is there any specific reason due to which the customers are declining in the petrol, coming to the petrol pump?
Well, if I knew that, we wouldn't really hire a consultant. But
Right. So maybe is it due to the location?
could be. So
All right.
how you want to uh, basically communicate this is you have to give your own thoughts. So here are three things that I think are causing the let's say decline in people coming to the petrol pump. I think one could be the location, maybe the surrounding of the petrol pump, or maybe the service. These are the three things that I think. Do you think uh, is it one of this, or is it something else that could be affecting? So that's how
There,
you have to take it forward.
there could also be an increase in prices.
But like I said, it's the decline in people coming to the revenue that's causing a problem. Yeah, Hansika, go ahead.
Hello. Nowadays, the concern people are really concerned about the environment, so people are switching to electrical vehicles. So they might not be needing petrol and diesel anymore. So that could be one of the reasons due to decline.
Okay, possible. Yeah, possible. That could be one of the reasons.
All right, Karthik mentioned in chat that it can be the fuel hike too.
But
One person,
for this case context, let's assume the price has not increased.
one of the person added power petrol booths may be more as compared to normal.
I think he's suggesting that there is some other kind of petrol possible, but let's say uh, the service was a is a problem, right? So how will how will you take it forward from there? Think
Sweksha
of a
has
structure.
added, yeah, please continue.
We can decrease the again, Sweksha, that's maybe a solution that we can look at, but let's try to identify what is the problem. And the hint that I've given you is that the service basically is a problem. We hired, or I think before I go ahead, why don't anyone try to attempt? How will you structure the problem, right? So you have a problem with service. What would be like 2 or 3 things that you would want to look at?
Service, you mean that we don't have enough staff.
That could be one thing. What can be other things?
Secondly, the fuel must be getting over time. That's why many of customer looking out for the another petrol pump.
I think service, let's keep the context only to interaction with the staff. So it is staff related problem.
Okay.
So I guess a poor service would lead to a reduced number of customers actually visiting them.
True.
Also, there must not be any shift as day shift or night shift. One person is also only working for 24 hours. That could be
So
also be a
guys,
problem.
I'll reiterate. We don't have to jump to conclusions, right? So I'll give you an example how I would see. Okay, that's how I would say to the interview. Okay, by service you mean interaction with the staff. And if I did have to look at the staff, I would want to look at their experience. I would want to look at their compensation. I would want to look at their shift timings. Maybe another aspect can be training and motivation. Does that sound uh, comprehensive? Are there any aspects that we can also look at and say the interviewer says, all right, I think this looks uh, comprehensive, and let's look at just the compensation. So for the staff, within the staff, we understood that compensation is a problem. So what would be the next logical question or thing that you would want to ask?
Compensation, you mean
Salary.
salary? Yes, they are not getting the salary on time. Or case is another.
Yeah. Again, communicate with a structure. Don't give a conclusion, communicate with a structure.
Okay.
So I guess if the compensation is not being met and the customers are also reducing, so maybe the product they are offering is not of good quality as such, and maybe the competitors are providing it better, or maybe they're not promoting it as well as they could have, or maybe the location has an issue.
All of those aspects are fine, but just continue from the thread that we are pursuing. And the thread is that uh, service was bad. Maybe that is happening because the compensation has a problem. So that is the thread we have been pursuing. So if you had to pursue it further, what would be the logical thing you would ask? Bhumi, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we might want to consider if they're getting paid enough, or if they're getting paid on time, or if they're getting enough bonuses or incentives, or yeah.
Okay, so salary on time, the actual salary that they are getting, right, might be lesser or versus other. So the time, uh, basically the amount, other aspects can be the components. So someone might be getting, other people, service staff may be getting more fixed. Here we have uh, done some changes. Anyone else? Let's have one more try from someone. Sweksha, please go ahead.
I think we can decrease the purchase of oil, and we can focus more on selling what we have and making profit out of it. And we can also put some schemes and some offers, and yeah, and we can also ask for finances from the financiers.
All right, let's wait for 2 minutes. I think Anubhav has lost his internet connection.
Hi, I'm so sorry I lost connection. Did I miss anything?
No, no, no.
Um, yeah, Karthik has written in chat box, outdated technology could be a concern to customers. Also, it would add up to lack of motivation for staff to work effectively.
Okay, but I still feel that's not really connected to the thread that we are pursuing, that compensation is a problem. I think whoever mentioned was on the correct path, that we can look at, uh, the timing of their salary. We can look at the amount, and say we find that essentially what happened was 6 months previously we changed the components of service staff compensation, right? And now the fixed component has reduced and variable component has been increased, and there is no objectivity to that variable component, and that is leading to dissatisfaction of service staff, and that's leading to poor quality of service, and eventually that trickles down into people not getting great service and the revenue decreasing. So we have arrived at the problem. So what is the next stage? Anyone? Sure, Rahul, go ahead.
So this is the point where we need to give our appropriate solution, right? After digging
Yes.
deep into the problem. So after seeing to the case, I have few recommendations to be made. First is the staff. What is the fixed pay? We need to have a performance matrix for each staff member so that they get a variable pay on time, and also it is compensated as per their grade level. Firstly, then secondly, what problem we have uh, listed is that service is not good. To improve the service, training and management center should be their training session should be there for the staff members so they get well educated to do all the necessary things on a day-to-day basis. Thirdly, we spoke that uh, from qualification question, I found out that there are normal petrol is only there, power petrol is not there. So power petrol also added advantage to a petrol pump as it provides more average as compared to the normal petrol. So this should be also included in petrol pumps. So it will also attract more and more customers to get in.
Okay. I think how you position it, that say to address the core problem, you can do these three things, and from an overall or general perspective, you can look at the third solution that you have suggested. So that's how I would structure it. Anyone else wants to take a shot at solutioning?
Maybe we can provide some more incentives at the convenience store, like discounts or coupons, so that people uh, um, actually, if they visit the petroleum, they also happen to visit the convenience store that way.
Yes, that will definitely help the revenue problem, but what was the core issue that we arrived at? The core issue was that the salary structure of the service staff had a big variable component, and there was no objective way of handing out that variable component. So people are not feeling motivated. The service staff is not feeling motivated, and that's leading to bad service. So that is the core problem. So our solution should address that problem.
Hello, I need to add one point. We can also have a recreation room for the service staff in between the lunch so that they get a shift and also their mood is motivated in that kind.
Good, I think. But when you will start your own job, I think you'll realize salary comes before all of these things. Anyone,
That difference
we can
between
take a.
this and real-time jobs.
Uh,
I think
anyone
that
else? Yeah.
maybe then they should first at least find some fixed source for providing the salaries to all the employees.
Why don't you communicate in a structured manner if you had to try again?
All right, so maybe they should look for incentives or collaborations with other companies that essentially could lead to a fixed source, which is actually making sure that the employees are also satisfied and their salaries are also being met.
Okay, anything else?
Maybe we can check what are the compensation policies that are being followed by the other 3 petrol pumps.
Yes, that's a good solution.
Maybe they can have a employee of the month solution and provide bonus to the one who are performing and are being effective in their performance. So that will motivate others to do the same.
Yep. Okay. I will just also try to how would I solution it. So I would say, all right, so the compensation structure of the service staff seems to be the issue that is driving dissatisfaction, and eventually that's leading to bad service, that's leading to reduced revenue. So uh, some solutions that I would look at is, one, can we roll back to the original compensation plan? I would want to discuss if that's feasible. Two, can we set up an objective metric or some kind of framework to determine variable pay so that there is more objectivity. Third, to improve general motivation, can we look at bringing in like an employee of the month recognition, building some recreational activity so that it affects the general motivation of the service staff? Does any of that solution work for the client? And the interviewer say, yes, we can look at setting up a framework for defining the variable pay. And I think that will give us the most value. And next you say, okay, Anubhav, you have to present this analysis to the CEO of the uh, client. What will you say? So I'll put it back to you guys. How will you synthesize everything that has occurred? A lot of people on call. I feel it's only 4 or 5 same people, Rahul, Zubia, that are speaking up. Rest of you, please try to contribute. It's like a safe space for making mistakes. Or I'll have to cold call. I feel like a professor now. Anyone just think of, how will you communicate to the CEO that, okay, what have you found? What can be done? And remember, I told that you want to focus on the solution and its impact in your communication. Rahul, I want to give you a chance, but I also want to hear from others. If no one speaks up in a minute, then I'll ask Rahul to take the stage again.
So I think I'll present like uh, we should increase the pay scale for the workman at the station, and moreover should incentivize overall pay structure. Like if they invest more time at the station, they would be paid more basically.
Okay, but those are not the kind of solutions. Say the solutions are the three things that I mentioned, right? We can roll back to the original compensation plan. Second, let's put a framework for really objectively identifying variable pay. Third is improving general motivation by employee of the month. So these are the three solutions. Now, how will you communicate it back to the CEO of the petrol pumps? You want to try again, Keshav?
One thing in like I'm structuring the solution. Once
Okay. Anshika, maybe you have to ask your club members to take this one.
Yeah, sure. All of those who want to try and just synthesize the problem can say yes. Okay, Zubia wants to say something.
Right. So the problem that we identified was because of a change in the compensation of employees due to a variable factor adding up to it. And the possible solutions that we would like to recommend is firstly, if it is possible for us to go back or roll back to the previous system, which would somehow provide more satisfaction to the employees. Or secondly, what we can do is that we can see if we can moderate or change the variable pay into something that presents itself as a fixed opportunity to the salaries of the employees. And thirdly, we can have general motivation programs for the employees as well, like the employee of the month option. And yeah, that's about it. We can also look forward to the second option of the framework and see how we can go about it ahead.
Okay, good. Rahul, I won't deny you, but I think
Yes. So,
no one
so
else is really volunteering. So yeah, let's hear from you, Rahul.
so problem what we are facing that our petrol pump profitability revenue wise what not increasing. So what major find, so I have few findings out of it. So from major finding from the case is we should roll back to our previous salary structure which was it 6 months back. Also we should have top performing employee matrix that could be measure the employee's performance monthly. Thirdly, we should have a recreation hall for the employee so that they sit back, relax, and have some lunch break. And also we should have some time, some kind of motivational program for the employees so the customer service can be improved.
Okay, cool. I'll also give an attempt. So, like, uh, the solutioning should focus on the solutions that were like agreed upon with the interviewer. Right? So there might be some other things or that you wanted to say, or you feel that should be said because it will give you some brownie points, but usually try to avoid doing that. So for synthesis, very easy. Uh, the uh, reason for decline in revenue was that the service staff was dissatisfied given the recent compensation structure changed, which increased the share of variable pay as per a monthly uh, contribution. So some solutions that we think can help address this are we can go back to the original compensation structure, or secondly, we can look at defining a framework to objectively measure the variable pay. Third, from a general motivation and training point of view, you can organize training programs, employee of the month program, recreation facilities. And the next steps would be to look at the second solution deeper and how that can help address the employee satisfaction. That's my attempt. So I think this was a case which I was able to, handhold you all of you through the various stages. I think this flow and like ease of moving from one kind of mindset, like, okay, first you have to reiterate, then clarification, then structuring, then solutioning, that gets easier with time. And you learn how to communicate in each of these stages. And if you are struggling a bit, please don't feel like saddened, you'll get better at it. So can we move to the last slide? I think we had a plan for the case a little differently, but I kept it a little free flow. So this was a framework that was from the case book. So it breaks down the profits, revenue, cost, revenue as two buckets, the convenience store and the petrol revenue. There was some other data that would have made the case more analytical, and You can find this case in the IIM Ahmedabad casebook and go through it. Let's move to the last slide. Next, please. Yep. So, yeah. All right. So, how should you go forward from now? So, the first thing is collect some of these popular case books. They are available on Google. You can ask your friends. I think RCC will also help you here. So, have these books in place, and then what really works well is doing cases as well as giving cases. So you can form a case group between 2 or 3 people, and you have a case book open. One person acts as the interviewer, second person is at the interviewee, and the third person observes and really notes down what kind of approach and communication uh, was displayed from the interviewee. And once the case is ended, all three of you can really brainstorm and understand, uh, okay, the case book had this approach, but the interview ended up using a different kind of approach, but we arrived at the similar sort of root cause, similar sort of solutions. The case book could would have really have the model answer. So it's not always possible to really proceed as per the case book. So the third person should also note down like your communication and say that, okay, Anubhav, when you were clarifying, you didn't really ask relevant questions. During solutioning, you were maybe being unstructured. I felt the solutions were not as structured. The synthesis was too long, could have been shorter. So some of these notes can be made by a neutral person. And once you have done this, and then you rotate. So what ends up happening is uh, you learn 20 cases by doing yourself. You learn another 15 cases by being the interviewer, and another 10-15 by just observing other people do case interviews. So that really gives you a holistic preparation. And yeah, that's it. I am happy to like stay back for another 10 minutes, address any questions, any feedback.
Thank you, sir.
No worries, Rahul.
The stage is now open for questions. So if you have any doubt or queries, either you can raise your hand or put your questions in the chat box.
Thanks, Ritika. Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Gautam. Okay, Shreya is asking, should one follow the same approach while solving case competition? No, I think case competitions are a little different. So you would have a much more larger case context, but what you can still utilize is approach it in a structured way. So a case competition can be, say, we are a paint company and we want to increase our marketing. So whatever solution that you develop can be done in a structured way. So in that way, you can make a presentation in structured way that, okay, for this problem, we are looking at 4 aspects, and in each aspect, we will do this. But other than that, I think not a lot translates to case comps. Thanks, Ansika. Thanks, Vasu.
All right. Thank you, Anubhav. Now, I would like to request all the attendees to turn on their cameras so that we can have a picture of the session. All right. On behalf of Ramanujan Consulting Club and the attendees, I would like to express our gratitude for taking the time to deliver an insightful online session on Case Crunch. Your knowledge, experience, and practical tips have been valuable for all of us. Thank you so much, Anubhav. Moreover, I would like to invite all of you to check out our upcoming mentor session on resume building at 6 p.m. The link to the registration session will be posted in the chat box. Do check out.
Thanks, Anshika, and thanks everyone at Ramanujan Consulting Club for giving me this opportunity. And thanks everyone for attending. I hope it was useful.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Anubhav.
much, Anubhav.